Okay, so I'm gonna just finish up these slides. We are nearly done. Just quickly make sure everything's going properly. And it is. Okay. So the book has a really big section on eating, weight, and I support this decision because uh, eating disorders are a huge uh, concern for teens. And apart from that, there's so many food issues that are now just a big public health problem. It's a struggle for families, it's a struggle for individuals, it's a struggle for adults. So, kind of moving along. Interesting finding that harsh parenting uh, goes with it's one of their one of their graphs where I feel like I could maybe make it a teeny bit more clear. But I think the point, but I think the point is probably clear that harsh parenting goes with increased difficulty around feeding. Harsh parenting is usually we kind of use that to kind of mean less than doesn't meet criteria for maltreatment, but but relatively poor parenting, very authoritarian to the point of being uh, close to abuse. A lot of race ethnicity findings. Um, so significant difference based on minority status for difficulty with body weight. However, the body image concerns are sort of slightly different in terms of how much um, black girls, say, versus white girls are worrying about their weight. So I think we would expect more eating disorders among white girls. And did they say that? Yes, they did. Yeah, I'm not making that up. They said that. So yeah, so that's interesting. So it's kind of it's kind of mixed news in terms of it's good that some groups are less vulnerable to eating disorders, but it's not, but in other ways, it's not good that some groups are at elevated risk for obesity because remember, an obese child or teenager is more likely to preserve that status into adulthood and then have a fair amount of early cardiovascular disease. Um, you know, it was only in my It's only been a couple decades where we've seen the rise of obesity affecting children that are so young. So I think it'll be some time before we see the full health cost of that sort of, having, um that kind of, think about like that kind of risk over such a long period of time to see, thinking about health span and lifespan. So again, sensitive, tough issue, but kind of an important one. Sleep. So sleep is, I think you kind of know this because you'll probably remember it from being a teenager. Um, Adolescents experience a shift where they become more awake when regular adults are starting to be ready for bed. So it is harder for teenagers to get to sleep early. It is more natural for them to stay awake later. I think lots of parents across time have not appreciated um, that it's really hard for teenagers because their bodies actually are shifting later. An ideal sleep time for a teenager goes to bed later and would sleep later. Now, as the book makes clear, teenagers don't need less sleep. They need more sleep, 9 hours a night, but they're ever less likely to get it partly because we get them up for school at 6:30 or 7 in the morning, whatever time, and we start them in school when they're half asleep. Unlike adults who, many, working adults are very happy to go to bed at 9 p.m. and might get up at 5 in the morning. Much more difficult for a teen. However, in my sense, the big problem, a really fairly serious problem, is that teens are losing sleep to screen devices. This, by the way, I've heard this reported about adults as well, that as a society overall, we're losing sleep to things like television. That's pretty stunning because sleep is such an important part of not just health, it's certainly an important part of health, but also quality of life. When you don't get enough sleep, as you obviously know, you feel less good, and maybe seriously less good, meaning you might really be unhappy. But yet, even adults lose sleep to staying up late to watch late night television or whatever. Um, and nowadays, with the rise of social media, it is so hard for teens. I'm, if I tried to step through all of the things that they're doing, I would get some of it wrong and you would maybe laugh at me, which is okay. But um, but I'm vaguely aware that my children have many people that they snap each day or whatever they kind of update each day. So my children both have a handful of very close friends, but then they have dozens of other people for whom they have some amount of online, I don't know what to call it, kind of like a commitment to to snap back or what to do the things that they do. And I see my children go to bed or begin this at night, and I don't know how long it takes them. And if you asked me honestly, what do I think I've done the least well at as a parent? There's lots of things I probably haven't been great at, but if you ask me what I think I did the least well at, it might be finding a way to protect my children in the face of this time where, as a society, we are clearly not. I mean, this is a strong statement, but I would stand by it. I don't think we are prioritizing our children's well-being at all, completely been unable to protect them from the sort of predatory reach of big technology, which is commodifying their attention and our attention with amazing success. Schools, as I observe, seem to glom on to whatever new techno gadget is available for teaching. I get this all the time. And in my own view, most of it is just a way to make my job easier, but not my teaching better. And in the case of, whether in schools, I, um, all the techno gadgets you bring into the classroom, all you're really kind of doing, in my view, is just reinforcing this notion that whatever like Google or Facebook produces, we all have to go have, and that it's automatically a good thing. Now, I know just in the last few years, there's been a huge amount of pushback against this idea. People like, oh goodness, I forget. A couple psychologists have done a really good job. Their names are just not coming to my head. Kind of arguing, writing editorials and doing research showing that social media can be quite destructive. But my sense is there's just been really very little willpower to go to bat for kids. Um, when they considered making TikTok illegal, as you remember that, uh, actually children reported that that it should go away. It's kind of like, someone who knows they can't resist something that they shouldn't have. They know they can't resist it, but if you say, well, we'll just take it away, they're not arguing. So in this case, it turned out that too many people with a lot of money were making money off these things that just didn't win. So this is I think the social media thing, I'm making a big point around sleep, but I think I would have amplified this issue a little bit throughout the book if I was the author. I think it's a pretty big current issue. Okay, so sleep. Yeah, you've read. So again, this is the take-home message: is teens need a lot of sleep. They're getting ever less sleep, and you can't just um, by far the most healthy thing to do is to get the same amount of sleep each day, to be kind of rigidly protective of your bedtime and your wake time. You can't sleep crappy Monday through Friday and then make it up on Saturday. Your body might sleep more on Saturday night because it's exhausted, but in terms of health, that's not the same thing. Uh, okay. And again, it's very clear what's happening. Decade after decade, we're getting less sleep. And yeah, so this is slow wave sleep declines in adolescence. That's the deep sleep. Um, I want to find, yeah, I talked about this. Well, actually, I'll just add this notion that teens really do experience this phase shift that's not their imagination has motivated some schools to start late for teenagers. So imagine a teenager starting school at 10 o'clock or 10, yeah, maybe let's just say 10 o'clock, which is, maybe an hour and a half later. Um, that's better for the teens. However, that's really tricky because we don't, parents have to get their kids off to school and then they often have to go to work. And so it's really tricky to get school out of sync with work. Um, Big cultural differences in how much teens are working at night and how they're losing sleep. Um, uh, Use. So, it's interesting. Girls are using the cell phone a little more than boys, but not a lot more. I think what's more striking is that they're both boys and girls are heavily using cell phones before bedtime. I'm guessing you know this, but screens are terrible for sleep. They really do a good job of waking up your brain, really, kind of lighting up your brain in a way that's the opposite, um, the opposite of calming. I work real hard to read 15 minutes at least before bed, but not on my screen, in a magazine or a book, completely different. Okay. So, again, this is the sort of thing you've probably seen. Um, we're finding uh, declines across all scores. But American education is really struggling relative to other countries, or has struggled. School starts, and I think I'll let you go through the cascades. I think it's all pretty clear. Okay, I'll stop there. This will be, of course, a very short one.